My wealthy ex-husband's lawyers had spent weeks portraying me as an unfit mother. It was the last day of our custody hearing, and I was on the brink of losing my son. Moments before the session began, I paused to help an elderly janitor who had spilled his bucket in the hallway. Walking into court late, shaken and certain I had sealed my fate, I saw a new judge, someone I had never met, walk in and smile at me. Before we get to the verdict, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from today? Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Now, let's head to the courthouse. That morning broke cold and gray, a perfect reflection of my state of mind. For 6 exhausting weeks, I had been locked in a war, not with weapons, but with words, falsehoods, and 1,000 small attacks aimed at draining my confidence, my credibility, and ultimately, my son. My ex-husband, Grant Donahue, a man whose wealth was matched only by his calculated cruelty, had assembled a legal team like a nuclear arsenal. They twisted every part of my life. My freelance graphic design income became financial instability. My post-divorce grief became emotional volatility, and my lack of a large family became evidence of an unstable environment for our 8-year-old son Caleb. All of it was a lie, an expensive, well-crafted lie. My home was a haven of love and security. Grant, by contrast, was a ghost in Caleb's life. He had never attended a parent-teacher meeting or a soccer game. To him, our son was just another asset to win, a final trophy from our bitter divorce. My lawyer, Miss Chen, a young but brilliant public defender, had fought fiercely for us. We had presented school records, teacher testimony, and photos of the safe, happy home I built for Caleb. We even submitted Grant's last-minute text cancellations of visitation weekends for trips to Cabo and Monaco. The case stood on a knife's edge. Judge Miller, who had presided over weeks of testimony, seemed conflicted. Everything came down to this day, our closing arguments and his final ruling. But the night before, everything changed. Ms. Chen called me, her voice unusually tense. "Alara," she said, "there's been a development. Judge Miller had a family emergency. He's been recused." My stomach dropped. What does that mean? They've assigned a new judge to hear closing arguments and deliver the verdict. A senior judge, Alistair Finch. Even I had heard of Judge Finch. A legend in the legal community, he was known for his sharp mind and his zero tolerance for theatrics or deception. He cut through elaborate legal arguments to reach the human truth of a case. He was also famously strict and unpredictable. My anxiety, already high, tightened like a knot. We were no longer dealing with a judge familiar with our story. This was like walking into a final exam with an unknown proctor, deciding my future in a single morning. I arrived at the courthouse clutching my final statement, my mind spinning with legal arguments and silent prayers. The hallway teemed with people, lawyers in sharp suits on their phones, worried clients, stern court officers. I scanned for Miss Chen when it happened. Just ahead, an elderly janitor, a small, frail man with a kind, wrinkled face, struggled with his bulky cleaning cart. A wheel snagged on a loose tile. The cart lurched, then tipped. A bucket of dirty water spilled across the polished floor with a loud crash. Mops, brooms, and wet floor signs clattered everywhere. The crowd parted around him. People shot him annoyed looks as they stepped carefully past the spreading puddle, never pausing their conversations. The old man, face flushed with embarrassment, scrambled to collect his scattered supplies while the world rushed past him. In that moment, my own fear of the courtroom faded. All I saw was a stranger's humiliation, his smallness in a world too busy to care. My lawyer was waiting. The new judge was about to take the bench, and my son's future hung in the balance. Yet right in front of me, an old man knelt in a puddle of dirty water. I froze. 2 opposing forces pulled at me. Ahead was courtroom 4B, where my entire future rested in the hands of a strict, unknown judge. Behind that door waited my lawyer, my pounding heart, and my smug ex-husband, a man using every ounce of wealth to take my child. Every instinct screamed at me to go inside, to be perfect, to give no excuse for them to rule against me. But at my feet lay a different reality. Spilled water, scattered supplies, and a humiliated elderly man. In his shame, I saw my own, the weeks of being labeled unfit, of having my character dismantled by lawyers in expensive suits. I saw, in the crowd's cold glances, the same disdain I'd seen in my ex-husband's eyes. To hell with it, a quiet, defiant voice whispered inside me. If I lost my son because I took 2 minutes to show a stranger basic decency, then the world was already too broken for that verdict to matter. It wasn't really a decision, it was instinct. The only humane thing to do. I knelt on the cold, wet floor, my carefully chosen dress instantly soaking up the gray water. "Are you all right, sir?" I asked, softly. The janitor looked up, pale blue eyes startled. He was so used to invisibility that my simple acknowledgement seemed to shock him. "Oh, miss," he stammered, hands trembling as he gathered the scattered bottles. "You'll ruin your clothes. I'm so sorry. I'm just so clumsy today." "Don't you dare apologize," I said firmly but kindly. "It was an accident. Let me help you." Together, we began to clean up the mess. I wrung out the sodden mop head and gathered rolling bottles of cleaner, placing them back in his cart. We worked in quiet cooperation, an island of calm in the rushing hallway. It was then that my ex-husband appeared. Grant walked by with his lead attorney. He saw me kneeling on the floor, my dress stained, helping the janitor. He didn't stop. He didn't even slow down. Instead, he looked at me with a slow, contemptuous smirk, a look that said, "This is who you are, a nobody. This is why you will always lose to me." He whispered something to his lawyer, and they both laughed quietly as they walked into the courtroom. The old me would have been crushed by that look, but kneeling there I felt different. His contempt no longer held power over me. I just looked back, expression neutral, then returned to helping the kind old man beside me. "There," I said once we had righted his cart and cleared the worst of the spill. "All sorted." The janitor met my eyes, gratitude shining in them. "Thank you, miss," he said thickly. "God bless you. You have a good and kind heart. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." His words felt like an unexpected blessing, small armor for the battle ahead. Then I glanced at my watch and felt my heart sink. I was 10 minutes late. "I have to go," I muttered, a new wave of panic washing over me. I ran down the hall, my courtroom heels echoing sharply against the marble floor. When I reached the heavy doors of courtroom 4B, I could already hear faint voices inside. The hearing had started without me. Miss Chen was probably beside herself with worry, and Grant was likely already spinning my lateness into proof of my irresponsibility. I took a deep, shaky breath, bracing for the judge's anger and my ex-husband's inevitable smirk. Pushing the door open, I entered. Apology ready on my lips. My lawyer's eyes were wide with panic. Grant wore an unmistakable expression of victory. The new judge was already on the bench, a dark-robed figure facing away from me, as he studied a stack of documents. In that moment, I was certain that my small act of kindness had just cost me my son, without realizing it was the very thing that would save him. As the door closed behind me, the sound of my unsteady breathing filled the sudden silence. Every head turned toward me. I saw the jury box lined with weary faces, a small gallery of observers, and even a local reporter. Grant and his lawyer exchanged a barely perceptible smirk, savoring my humiliation. Miss Chen looked at me with silent desperation. "I'm so sorry, Your Honor," I said in a hoarse whisper as I hurried to my seat. I was delayed unexpectedly in the hallway. The judge didn't turn around. Seated in a high-backed leather chair, his broad shoulders filled the black robe as he continued scanning the papers before him. "Be seated, Miss Vance," came a deep, gravelly voice that reverberated through the quiet room. The sound carried such authority it sent a chill down my spine. This was him, the renowned Judge Alistair Finch. Miss Chen leaned toward me, whispering urgently, "Where were you? He's been on the bench for 5 minutes. He's strict about punctuality. This isn't good." Grant's lawyer, a man with the kind of smug smile that had come to define him, rose to begin his closing argument. He wasted no time using my lateness against me. "Your Honor," he began, his tone dripping with feigned sympathy. "As we've demonstrated over these past weeks, the defendant's chaotic and irresponsible nature continues to show itself even today, on this crucial day. Her tardiness demonstrates a clear lack of respect for this court, these proceedings, and ultimately, her own child's welfare." My face burned. I sat there in silence, absorbing every word of his carefully rehearsed condemnation. I risked a glance at Grant. His cold, triumphant eyes met mine. He was relishing every second. For 20 long minutes, his lawyer continued his polished attack, blending half-truths and outright lies into a portrait of me as unstable and unfit. When he finally sat down, the room felt heavy with accusation. Then Miss Chen stood. Her voice trembled slightly, but carried conviction. She spoke of the evidence we had presented, the school records, teacher testimonies, photos of Caleb's happy home, my consistent devotion as a mother. She described Grant's manipulation, his repeated absences, his attempts to use money as a weapon. Her argument was strong, but against their power and resources, it felt like a desperate defense. When she sat down, silence took over once more. The air felt dense, the ticking clock on the wall painfully loud. This was it, the moment that would define my life and my son's future. The judge still hadn't turned around. He remained motionless, reading his notes. My hope was gone. I was sure I had lost everything. That small act of compassion in the hallway now felt like the foolish mistake that ruined it all. Then, slowly, he set down his papers. Removing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, he placed them carefully on the desk. With deliberate calm, he turned his chair to face the courtroom for the first time, and time itself seemed to stop. My breath caught. My mind refused to believe what my eyes were seeing. It couldn't be real. The man seated behind the bench, the legendary Judge Finch, was the janitor. It was him, the same elderly man from the hallway, with the same tired face and pale blue eyes. Only now, instead of embarrassment, his expression carried quiet confidence and authority. His gaze swept across the courtroom, past the lawyers, past my stunned face, past Grant, who sat rigid, not recognizing him. Of course he didn't. Grant hadn't looked at the janitor for more than a second that morning. To him, the man was invisible, unimportant, but I had seen him, and he had seen me. Our eyes met briefly. He gave no smile, no overt sign of recognition, just a small, nearly imperceptible nod. No one else noticed, but I. He cleared his throat, the low rumble echoing through the silent chamber. He was about to speak, about to deliver his judgment. Grant watched him with confidence, unaware of who sat before him. But I knew, the man who now held my future was the same one whose dignity I had defended not an hour ago. In that moment, I didn't know whether my kindness had earned me compassion or my lateness had earned me punishment. My heart pounded as I waited for him to speak. The courtroom seemed frozen in time. Every person, lawyers, jury, my ex-husband, sat in tense anticipation. The judge's face, once kind, was now composed and unreadable. The small nod he'd given me could have meant anything. Putting his glasses back on, he looked down at the case file before him. His voice filled the room, deep, steady, and commanding. I have spent the last 48 hours reviewing the complete testimony and evidence in the case of Vance versus Donahue, he began. It has been a contentious proceeding. He looked first at Miss Chen. Counselor, he said, you've presented a clear and well-supported argument for your client's ability as a mother. You have shown consistent evidence of her stable home, her commitment to her son's education, and her loving, responsible care. A faint spark of hope flickered in me. He had seen the truth. Then he turned to Grant's attorney. And you, counselor, he said evenly, have delivered a vigorous, though largely circumstantial case against Miss Vance. You have used your client's substantial resources to portray her as unstable and financially weak. He paused, his words hanging heavy in the air. It has been a skillful and very costly exercise in character destruction. Grant's lawyer sat taller, mistaking the remark for praise. Grant's smirk returned. The judge removed his glasses again and leaned forward, resting his arms on the bench. His voice softened, taking on a reflective tone. However, he said, a custody case is not simply about money or appearances. At its heart, it is a question of character. It is about who is best suited to guide a child, not just through the world, but toward being a decent, compassionate human being within it. Then he looked directly at me. The same eyes I had seen in the hallway, calm, wise, and knowing. This morning, he began. His tone shifted, carrying a calm, storytelling weight. Before I took this bench, he began, I walked through the main hallway. I was running a small personal experiment to see the true character of those who pass through these doors. I witnessed a minor incident. An elderly janitor accidentally spilled his cleaning cart. It was a simple mistake, a moment of quiet embarrassment. I watched him glance up first at me, then at your ex-husband. He paused, his eyes now sharp and steady as he looked at Grant. I saw how people reacted, the judge continued. Dozens of well-dressed, important individuals hurried by. Some looked irritated, others indifferent. Most didn't even stop. To them, he wasn't a person, just an inconvenience. His expression hardened as he turned fully toward Grant. I saw you, Mr. Donahue, he said, his voice low and firm. You walked past that man. You saw your ex-wife, the mother of your child, kneeling in a puddle of dirty water, helping him, and you smirked. You turned to your lawyer and laughed. You witnessed a simple act of human kindness and chose to see it as weakness. The color drained from Grant's face. His confidence vanished, replaced by growing disbelief. He was reliving the moment, realizing the implications too late. The judge then turned to me, his tone softening, not with pity, but with deep respect. And I saw you, Miss Vance, he said. You were late for one of the most important days of your life. You had every reason to walk away. Yet you stopped. You knelt in that water to help him. You put aside your own urgent needs and dignity to protect someone else's. You showed compassion when there was nothing to gain and everything to lose. Leaning forward, his voice filled the courtroom with quiet authority. Mr. Donahue, he continued, your entire argument rests on the idea that your wealth and status make you the better parent. But today, you've proven the opposite. You lack the most essential quality a father should have, a kind and compassionate heart. You are the type of man who would step over someone struggling, while Miss Vance is the kind of person who stops to help. He finally looked away from Grant's pale, frozen face and reached for his gavel. I've heard the arguments, he said. I've reviewed the evidence. But today, I've also seen the truth of these two people's characters with my own eyes. At that moment, I understood. The trial had never been just about documents or testimonies. There had been another, silent trial, a test of integrity held in that hallway earlier that morning, with one crucial witness, and the verdict was about to be delivered. The courtroom fell into complete silence. My future and my son's hung in the balance. Grant's expression had shifted from arrogance to fear. The smirk that once defined him now haunted him, its memory exposed under the judge's words. Judge Finch looked back down at the official papers before him. His face became the firm, impartial mask of judicial authority once again. I have reviewed all evidence and testimony presented over the past 6 weeks, he began, his deep, steady voice filling the room. Miss Chen, he nodded toward my lawyer, you have presented a clear and persuasive case for your client's fitness as a parent, supported by credible witnesses and thorough documentation. Then he turned toward Grant's legal team. Counselor, he said evenly, your case was energetic, though largely based on circumstantial and often exaggerated claims. Your arguments have been duly noted. He paused, letting the moment settle before continuing in a more personal tone. As I stated earlier, a custody case is ultimately a judgment of character. It determines which parent is best suited to teach a child empathy, integrity, and compassion. He picked up his gavel, its simple form now representing the full weight of justice. It is the ruling of this court, he declared, his voice resolute, that the plaintiff's case, Mr. Donahue's, is hereby dismissed. The evidence clearly shows that the mother, Miss Vance, provides a stable, loving, and nurturing environment. Therefore, sole legal and physical custody of the child, Caleb Vance, is awarded to Miss Alara Vance. The words sole legal and physical custody echoed in my mind. The haze of fear lifted, replaced by overwhelming relief. I let out a sob and sank into my chair as my lawyer wrapped an arm around my shoulders in shared triumph. But the judge wasn't finished. Furthermore, he continued, his tone turning stern, due to Miss Donahue's lack of judgment, his attempts to manipulate this court, and the questionable behavior he displayed this morning. His visitation rights will be restricted to supervised visits, pending completion of a court-ordered program in co-parenting and anger management. Then, with one firm strike of the gavel, the judge ended it. The sharp sound cut through the silence. It was over. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Grant jumped to his feet, red-faced and furious. "This is outrageous," he shouted. "You can't do this. I'll appeal." Judge Finch's gaze hardened. "You will remain silent, Mr. Donahue, or face contempt of court. This ruling is final. We are adjourned." With that, he stood and exited through his private door, leaving the stunned room behind. I stepped out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon sunlight, holding my lawyer's hand on one side and my son Caleb's on the other. The battle was finally over. It was a victory not born of power or privilege, but of simple, quiet decency. Days later, Caleb and I were at the park. He was laughing freely, chasing pigeons, finally unburdened by the long custody fight. I sat on a bench watching him, a deep sense of peace settling over me. "Miss Vance," I looked up. It was Judge Finch, dressed simply, walking his small terrier. His demeanor was warm and unassuming. "Judge," I said, standing, "I never had the chance to thank you properly." He shook his head gently, smiling. "There's no need to thank me," he replied in that familiar, raspy voice. "You earned it. Your ex-husband came with power and lawyers. You came with honesty and integrity. It wasn't a fair match, but character won." He glanced at Caleb, who was now trying to play fetch with the little dog. "You have a fine son," he said. "Raise him well." With a polite nod, he continued down the path, just an old man and his dog. I watched him go, finally understanding that my victory wasn't just about winning custody. It was about something much greater, the reaffirmation that kindness, compassion, and integrity are not weaknesses, but true strength. I hadn't won because of legal strategy. I had won because of who I was, and that was a triumph no amount of money could ever buy. A powerful reminder that genuine character will always prevail in the end. What are your thoughts on the judge's unconventional but meaningful test? Share your opinion in the comments below. If this story of quiet integrity inspired you, Please show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing for more uplifting stories of justice and humanity. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.